A scene script, a single verse, a mere collection of words, yet it possesses the power to resonate so deeply within our hearts and souls. This verse is none other than Jeremiah 29:11, a beacon of hope and promise in the midst of hardship. Jeremiah 29:11 reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." At first glance, it seems like a comforting reassurance, but to truly understand its depth, we must delve into its context and meaning. This verse comes from the book of Jeremiah, a prophetic book in the Old Testament. Jeremiah the prophet lived during a time of great turmoil for the nation of Israel. They were exiled in Babylon, forced to live in a foreign land far from their home. It was in this setting that God spoke the words of Jeremiah 29:11, not as an immediate promise of rescue, but as a reassurance of his long-term plans for his people. The first part of the verse, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord," reveals an intimate knowledge and purpose that God has for his people. This isn't a distant deity making a vague promise, but a loving God who has thoughtfully crafted a plan for his children. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. This part of the verse can often be misunderstood. Prosperity does not always mean material wealth or worldly success, but a spiritual prosperity, a deep, fulfilling relationship with God. It's a promise that his plans are not to bring us harm, but to shape us, to grow us, and to bring us closer to him. The final part, plans to give you hope and a future, is a promise of restoration and redemption. It's not just about surviving the present hardships, but looking forward to a future where God's perfect plan comes to fruition. In the grand scheme of things, Jeremiah 29:11 serves as a reminder that God is in control, even in the midst of trials and tribulations. It is not a promise of a life free from hardships, but a promise of his unfaltering presence and unwavering plans for our good and his glory. To summarize, Jeremiah 29:11 is a verse rich with meaning and promise. It speaks of God's intimate knowledge and purpose for his people, his plans for their prosperity and protection, and his promise of a hopeful future. It's a verse that transcends time and context, providing comfort and reassurance for all who trust in him. Remember, these words were spoken to a people in exile, a nation in despair, yet they were filled with hope and promise. So whatever your personal exile may be, remember Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows the plans he has for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So hold on to this promise, and let it guide you through the trials and triumphs of life.